So we did a clip the other day which we were going to show to you guys about whether or not the La Liga was too easy because of Barcelona and Real Madrid winning numerous games, 8-0, 7-1, those sort of things. And we actually were talking about the distribution of wealth throughout La Liga and that being a factor in making it too easy, because at the moment Barcelona and Real Madrid they bring home the majority of the money which is made from TV revenue. However, new statistics have been revealed that there may be a strike in La Liga. Well, there is a strike towards the end of May, especially, which is going to halt games in Copa del Rey and in La Liga football towards the end of the season, because there is an argument between the government and TV rights saying that the amount of money is not shared equally amongst the teams. A new law was going to be enforced to try and push this move forward, to try and get teams shared television rights throughout the league. But the government are not happy about this because they feel that it's right the way it is, the fact that Barcelona and Real Madrid continue to take the majority of TV rights for their own. So there's a conflict there. And as a result of this, the games are going to be suspended, well, halted towards the end, which may affect some crucial games coming towards the end of La Liga play and Copa del Rey. So apart from that, we're going to move on and talk about some of the other factors that make La Liga too easy. Is La Liga too easy? Jason Rubin with me here, Terence Lane and Francis Maxwell, of course, talking a point that I've been dying to talk about, I think, on T2 Sports. I had it mentioned to me on 120 Sports, and it was something that I went into detail about, is La Liga too easy? Because it seems like every day I'm checking, every weekend I'm checking the scores, or I'm up watching the games for Real Madrid and Barcelona. And some days, don't get me wrong, it's very close, but we have scores like 8-0 and just remarkable amount of goals, primarily from Real Madrid and Barcelona on a consistent basis. That's not to say that they don't slip up now and again, because everyone will slip up. But if you look at the full season in context, the goal difference for me is the one that stands out the most. The goal difference between Real Madrid, Barcelona, and the teams even below them. I think there's like a 30 to 35 goal differential between Real Madrid and Atletico, who's next to them. That, for me, is the main reason that I'm going to highlight. But we've got a few graphics here to throw up to show you what it basically means in the La Liga to win it. Real Madrid, Barcelona, Atletico at the forefront of the winners and runners-up. Atletico Bilbao in there with 8 and Valencia and 6, and you get the odd trophy by Sevilla and Real Betis at the bottom. But it's not as much that I wanted to just go straight into this conversation. It's not as much that it's not competitive at the top, because you do have that rivalry between Real Madrid, Barcelona, and then we have Atletico making a resurgence. You have Valencia winning it in the off chance. So the top 4 or 5 is competitive. It's the gap between the top teams and the bottom teams. If you watch the Premier League, you will get the off chance that a Leicester will beat Manchester United in significant fashion, and you will get Chelsea struggling to get a 1-0 victory against Burnley or Crystal Palace or something like that. Whereas you rarely see Chelsea come out and batter a team 8-0, and that's because Chelsea are a little bit more defensive. But someone who's attractive like Arsenal, you don't see them still winning 7-8-0 on a weekly basis. That's why I think the gap between the top 4 and maybe bottom 8 or 9 is so significant in La Liga that makes it almost unenjoyable for me to watch week in, week out.
Yeah, and I'd say that the league is incredible to watch when you're watching those first top teams. And we see that regularly, that El Clasico, it's one of the most globally watched matches between these two, or of La Liga, and between these two rivalry teams. But beyond that, you have to stop and ask, how has this league corrupted over the years? Yeah. And is it due to the capitalist structure? Or, I mean, you could say the same thing, though, about the Prem. You could say the same thing in Germany. Now, I'd say that Germany's distribution of finances is yeah, I mean,
probably the worst.
They're still having the same problems and the same issues. So how do you actually resolve this? Yeah. Because for the love of the game, when two teams used to go out there and be competitive, yeah, you have your star players. Yeah, you have these rivalries that would just that would exist between players. But then add spectators, add money to the equation. Does that corrupt this league?
That's a very good point. In terms of the distribution of wealth, in La Liga, it's not distributed as equally as it is in the Premier League in terms of TV rights. Real Madrid and Barcelona have their own broadcast, and it allows them to withhold the majority of the money, whereas in the Premier League, they just signed a new deal that each team, in terms of the money they receive from TV rights, get an equal share. And that, don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean everyone's going to be in the same playing field when it comes to money, because Manchester City, of course, still have their oil baron to pump in money. Teams that come in from the Championship still get 62 million, I believe, each for coming into the Premier League. But it does give teams a good base to work from, that they can make signings and be more competitive.
Is La Liga too easy? Yes, obviously it's a top-heavy league. And the thing with a top-heavy league in general, and basically what that means is you have 2, 3, 4 teams at the top of it, and then everybody else just doesn't stand a chance.
Yeah.
It does create at least some sort of fan base out there that if you are a Granada who's a 19th or 18th on the La Liga table and you have maybe 5 wins on the season, when Real Madrid comes to play you, when Barcelona comes to play you, when Atletico comes to play you, if you can win that game, it does give you a little bit of bragging rights like, oh, we only won 5 games this entire season, but one of those 5 was fucking Ronaldo.
Yeah.
So you get to go home and you're proud of that. Now, in terms of, like, at least with the Champions League, in the mix of things, like, you have 4 teams from the top that get to go to the Champions League.
Yeah.
So yes, is it too easy for Barcelona and Real Madrid? Absolutely. But I don't think we're crediting enough of Valencia, who has 21 or 22 wins on this season.
Yeah.
In, yes, again, a top-heavy league, but some of those came with some tough-fought matches against the powerhouses that La Liga has.
Yeah.
I would say that the Bundesliga, in general, for Bayern, is way too easy because you have 1 team and 19
And the thing about
others.
the Bundesliga is with Bayern Munich, they literally have the option to choose the best players. Like, we've seen so many Borussia Dortmund players just waltz over to Munich in a bitter rivalry there. We've got Mario Götze, Lewandowski, and they just can't seem to hold on to the players. And I remember I'd done a clip way back, and I said Borussia Dortmund sell their best players, and a comment thread, so many people were like, no, they don't. They keep on to their best players. They cannot offer the same amount of wages that Bayern Munich seem to offer. And that's where you got to think about, is it not so much as a league too easy, but as Temris was saying, the capitalist side of it is how much money is generated. Because similar to Manchester City, they will go and pick the players that they want from the Premier League. But it seems like just in the culture of the Premier League, teams are still more competitive because Manchester City can take players from Arsenal. But look at this season, Arsenal are still more competitive at the moment and still have a fierce rivalry up there and are going to probably finish in second ahead of them because it still just seems like it's a more competitive league overall. And you're not relying on the win. Real Madrid are not relying on just beating Barcelona to win it if you're in the Premier League. Real Madrid can then rely on Barcelona maybe losing to a bottom level team if their league was more like the Premier League, but it doesn't happen. They have to win those games against Barcelona to win the league because you know Barcelona are going to demolish everyone in the bottom half.
So then you have to ask yourself, what's more important to La Liga, having a competitive league or having a strong representation on the European or the global stage?
Yeah.
Because you see them repeatedly, like this Champions League, we've got 2 teams from La Liga represented in the semifinals. So you have to ask from the top down, do they want to have a competitive league or do they want to be represented on the global stage in a certain light that would put them at the top?
And it's a similar, I reiterate this point every time someone asks me about what league do I prefer, La Liga or Premier League, and it's simple every time. La Liga has the best teams. Premier League is by far more entertaining, like by a country mile. It's just more, and that's maybe because I'm from Scotland and I grew up watching it week in, week out, but it's just, I can never tell. I take a betting stance. If I go in, I remember I told Ben Mankiewicz here, he's like, what bet should I put on this weekend? And I was like, Real Madrid are playing Granada, -4. Put money on it. That means Real Madrid start 4 goals down technically. And I said you could still win money, and he did because he came back and won 6-0. Whereas if he comes up and asks me West Brom versus Manchester United this weekend, who should I bet on? I'm like, I don't know. I literally don't know.
So,
maybe throw
from the betting perspective, La Liga is the greatest fucking thing ever created because when Barcelona this weekend, again, it caused a double take, by the way. That's what I always say when I'm going through scores on my phone. And you look and you go, first of all, you have to make sure it's checked on La Liga because when you see 8 goals, you think it's a typo.
Yeah.
Which I'm quite accustomed to, at least with sending emails, as some of the TYT Sports viewers do now. But when you see a double take, I don't know, like with La Liga being too easy, you have the 2 most captivating players in the world in all of football, in Messi and Ronaldo, playing in that league. Take one of them out of it, and you still get the most captivating, whichever one you side towards. So in terms of it being easy, sure, I find La Liga to be entertaining as all hell, maybe more so than the Premier League, just because I will always tune in to watch Messi play, or Ronaldo, or Suarez, or Neymar, even Atletico beating up Real Madrid, which they did multiple times this season.
No, Jason.
Not beating up, but
it's a fair point. It's a fair point, but no, I will rather the game of football is where it is because of competition, and the competition, as we just talked about, there's no one talking about the relegation battle in La Liga at the moment, unless you are from Spain. And don't get me wrong, so no, it might be close, but as soon as they come up against Real Real Madrid, those relegation battlers are going to end up with a -8 on their goal differentiation, where if you see someone like Leicester, who's going to travel perhaps and play Manchester United, they're fighting for their lives and they've got every chance to beat that top-level team because that's the way the Premier League works. You don't know what's going to happen. West Brom just beat Manchester United this weekend, and fair enough, Manchester United are not in the hottest run of form, but it happens way more than what happens in La Liga. And don't get me wrong, I do agree with you. I like the fact Sevilla just went on an unbelievable, I think it was a 22-game unbeaten streak, which Real Madrid just snapped. That's interesting. Still in the top level, though. Still none of these teams that are in like top bottom 6. They don't stand a chance unless they have a one-off game, which it's a one-off game now and again. So I'm out of breath.
So it's a competition thing. Do you want to watch for the best players in the world, or do you want to watch for the best competition?
Yeah.
I mean, we had an interesting fight this weekend that wasn't about competition, was it?
Yes, it wasn't. And that's why it wasn't as enjoyable. But would it have been more enjoyable if it was just completely one-sided and like there was no... If Pacquiao didn't even put up his gloves and just get knocked around for like maybe 2 rounds?
Well, I thought it was mostly completely one-sided, but I thought you were going to say if Pacquiao destroyed him. But we can't keep talking about the
I know,
Pacquiao
just throw up. But that is an interesting collaboration.
We're talking about competition.
Yes, of
course.
It's
competition. It's like you money... corruption, it takes the fun out of sports at times, and that's what we're really talking about, is really the top teams being able to afford the best players.
Yeah. And it is. Every league has their top teams that that can't be moved unless someone else has a bunch of money. Like someone comes in and takes over Manchester City. For years, Manchester City lived in the shadows of Manchester United, unable to try and make any sort of resurgence. But some oil baron comes in, you know what? There's a couple of 100 million, trillion, bajillion gone by.
And what happens?
And they win the league, but then they fall away as well because other teams still are competitive. The lower teams, as I will say, are the reason why the Premier League will still and always be the most entertaining league in the world.
So if you're in La Liga and you're one of those bottom teams, you play the game to play those games, not against the top teams, maybe for your whole credibility of saying, hey, I beat Ronaldo, or hey, I beat Messi once in my lifetime, if you're so lucky. But you're playing in that league so that you can be competitive amongst the bottom of the table.
Well, and then
you're playing for fourth.
And you're playing for that. You're playing for that battle, but then you lose 9-0 to Real Madrid, and suddenly your confidence is at rock.
Can we quote Ricky Bobby? If you ain't first, you're last.
All right, good. Well, that's a good comment to end on. What do you guys think? Is La Liga too easy? Leave your comments in the section below. From Jason, Emerson, Francis. Come back again to TYT Sports.